Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
The New Age. Welcome, everyone, to Polycarp's Paradigm. My name is Eric Robinson, and I'm with a very special guest today, Susan Brinkmann. Welcome, Susan, to the podcast.
Wonderful to be here.
Yes, well, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself for our listeners, that'd be so great.
Okay, as you said, my name is Susan Brinkmann. I am a Third Order Carmelite in the Discalced Order of Carmel, and I am an author of, I think I'm up to 11 books already. I don't know. I just write whatever the Lord puts on my heart. But a lot of books on Carmelite spirituality, but also a lot of books on the New Age and the occult. I do have an expertise in that area. Not that I ever started out wanting an expertise in that area, but I just kind of go where the Lord sends me. And I ended up writing quite a number of books. The Learn to Discern Compendium is on the New Age. I've also just recently written a book, well, I guess it's 2 years ago now, A Catholic Guide to Mindfulness, because of the problems of people getting involved in Buddhist-style meditation.
Yes.
And blending that in with their Catholic meditation, which that kind of doesn't go.
Yeah.
But that, and then I've written my conversion story. I call it my naughty girl story.
Okay.
About when I was away from the church for so long and how I thought I knew everything. And, I don't need this spirituality. I was just dabbling around in everything I could think of, crystals and psychics and prosperity gospel. I was very bad. I was very bad there for a while. You know what though, Eric? I was searching.
Yes.
I have found this in I've been working now as the lead New Age researcher for Women of Grace. Also their director of communication. That's Johnette Williams of EWTN. I've been working there now for 10 years, and we have a New Age Q&A blog, which we started in 2009. The two of us are always poking at each other. Whose idea was that anyway? That is now up to at least 1,500 entries in there. We take questions from all over the world. At this point, we get them from every continent now. People asking questions about it because a lot of them don't know. They don't understand the New Age. They don't know really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And people are getting led into it. And there's some areas of the New Age that it's not dangerous necessarily. It could be just the way that you're using certain things. And I'm speaking now about alternative medicine and that. Alternative medicine can be a real gateway into the New Age. But the New Age itself has its own philosophy.
Yeah.
And it really has its own philosophy in the way that it thinks. God isn't a personal being. God is an energy force that permeates the universe, which is known as pantheism. And because he permeates everything in the universe, animals, plants, you and me, we all have the divinity within us. And, we use these Eastern meditation techniques, usually mantra-based, the mind-blanking type techniques, to achieve an altered state in order to find enlightenment. What we're trying to be enlightened about is this inner divinity within ourselves. So this is, it's very complicated.
It's very complicated and convoluted and kind of confusing, but
it goes way out there. But it's very, like I said, the New Age embraces all that stuff. I mean, and Jesus is just one of many prophets. He's just like, everybody else. There's really no Christ because in the New Age, there's no sin.
But there
no
is
right
Christ
and
consciousness, right? Like something they would call Christ consciousness. What do they mean by that?
Christ consciousness, like a cosmic consciousness, is really what it's more like.
Okay.
It's being, having of you being the Christ and having a consciousness. It has nothing to do with Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Which a lot of people don't understand that either. So they have, like I said, Jesus is just one of many prophets, and there is no evil is not personified.
Yeah.
And in the New Age, it's either a good or a bad choice.
Hmm.
It's not good and evil. It's a good or a bad choice.
Hmm.
This is how they go about things. You can heal yourself. Your body can heal itself. You can become a God. You don't need God for anything, in other words. There's no need for grace. There's no need for redemption. This is the New Age philosophy. A lot of people, they just dabble in it.
And what's interesting to me is I think the people that I've interacted with that have this kind of philosophy, a lot of them don't even identify as New Agers. They would just say maybe they're spiritual but not religious, or they're just spiritual, or they're just on their journey, or any category like New Age they kind of want to reject. Some people embrace it, I guess, like as far as a category, but that's been my experience at least, where it is that, like, that is what it is.
It is New Age, yeah.
But they just don't subscribe to that, I guess, way of describing it. But I'm excited to get into your story. And then, yes, like I would love to dive into these different New Age philosophies along the way, because my understanding is that you grew up Catholic, but then
I did.
But then went far into the New Age and then finally came out. So start with the beginning. Like, how did you grow up Catholic? Like, was it a pretty strong upbringing? And then how did you first dip your toes into the New Age?
Well, we were brought up Catholic. I wouldn't say that we were the type who prayed the rosary every night after dinner, but we were brought up. I mean, you went to confession on Saturday, whether you wanted to or not. You did go to church. You went to Mass every Sunday, and we had a Catholic education the whole way through. But once it came time for college, I sort of went my own way, and I was just kind of into that whole scene. This was back in the 70s now. And I just wasn't into this faith at all. And I became a feminist. I became a very radical feminist.
Okay.
That was that era. That was the era that I kind of grew up in, was the first radical feminism that was out there.
Wow.
And I just felt like the church was out to make women, barefoot and pregnant, and I'm not going that way. And I'm going to get out there and, change the world and all that kind of stuff. Actually, the world changed me, but at the time I thought I knew what I was doing. And then I went through some hardship. My marriage fell apart, and I had always had the one dream, and this is what kept me really alive, I think, through some of the darker times that came, and that was to be a writer. I always wanted to be a writer. That was just me. I felt total peace when I was writing.
Wow.
And I would always say to myself, even though I wasn't with the church or really even praying, and I would say to myself, writing for me is like one long communion with God.
Wow.
I felt so close to him when I was writing. I didn't realize at the time that was my call. But anyway, so I wandered off to these, different paths. I got divorced. I was out there kind of single and not really knowing what to do at the age of 30. But like I said, the writing kept me going, and I finally got rejected. A manuscript got rejected. And that was sort of like the turning point for me. I had been writing for 14 years. I hadn't gotten anything published, not even a letter to a newspaper. And
Wow.
I thought to myself, what am I doing? I have to quit, but if I quit this, that's my lifeblood. I'll die. I was at rock bottom. My husband had left. I had just recently lost my job. This manuscript that I thought was going to be the big one, my agent sends back and says, Sue, start over. I'm not even sending this anywhere. And I'm thinking, So I just, kind of clung to that manuscript and on the floor of my study and shook my fist and I said, are you there? Are you for real? Is all this God stuff real? Because if you are, I need you. Either let me be a writer or kill me. Now, always
Wow.
the drama queen, of course, the drama queen. Just kill me.
Yeah.
But that was what I was saying to him. And I felt something go through me, and I have no idea what it was, but it was like a bolt of electricity. And I remember thinking to myself, I think I was supposed to just get struck by lightning, but God missed, because I shook my fist at him and was talking. This is how I thought of God.
Wow.
He was going to punish me for talking that way.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had been reading at the same time. I had been reading this book. It was the Prosperity Gospel, and it's Prosperity Gospel is how everything that Jesus is saying. He just wants you to be happy, wealthy, have everything you need, and
without the cross.
Oh, no cross at all. That's nowhere in sight.
Yeah.
And it was saying, Jesus says to you, ask and you shall receive. And if you don't receive, it's because you're not asking right. So I was in this thing where I was asking myself, all right, let me try to ask him the right way. And I was coming up with different ways to ask him, please help me. I want to, get married again, have a family, and be reasonably well off. And I thought, well, listen, I'll drop the reasonably well off part if you want. But I still really, I just want, please, just help me, And nothing would happen, of course. But one time, and this was the Lord at work, he put it into my head. He said, why don't you go check and see if that's in the Bible, if that's really in the Bible. And I thought, yeah, you know what? I want to check that. So he gets a Bible into my hand. I didn't even know I had the Bible. It was out in my book collection.
Yeah.
It was actually an antique, and that's why I bought it. I didn't buy it to read it. I bought it because it was an antique.
Oh, wow.
And so I open it up and I start rifling through, and I come to the Psalms of David. And David's writing, you are my strength. You are my love. You are my hiding place. You are my hope. You are my courage. You are my strength and my might. And I remember looking at this and thinking, what God is he talking to? Because I could use a God like that. I started reading the Psalms. And I started to really get into the Psalms. It was like, wow, I like this God. I called him David's God. That's how I called him.
Wow.
I never put I never connected anything. And then one day I'm at a family party, and my niece says to me, I want you to be my sponsor for confirmation. And everybody in the family's laughing. Oh, come on. She hasn't been in confession in 15 years. She hasn't been in a church. She goes into church, the whole church will blow up. Blah, 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 blah. And so my niece starts crying, and she says, no, I don't want anybody but Aunt Susie. It has to be her. Okay, look, can't hurt. I'm just going to go, and I'll ask if they'll give me the certificate to be your sponsor. So I go to I didn't even know where the church was. I had to stop at a gas station. We didn't have GPS in those days.
Wow.
And I said, do you know where St. Catherine of Siena is? And the guy says, Sue, it's a mile up the road. Oh, that's the church,
Wow.
I didn't even know. Okay, all right, So I went in, and I get this roly-poly, big, Italian, funny guy pastor who was in there. And I went in and I sat down with him, and I said, Father, I would like to sponsor my niece for confirmation. And he said, okay, are you in good standing with the church? And I'm like, I guess, yeah. I don't think anybody's mad at me,
Wow.
He goes, no. He knew right then. And he says, no. Are you attending the sacraments? I'm like, which ones? He's confession and the Eucharist? No. And he said, look, you have to be doing that in order to be a sponsor. I'm like, I understand that. But at the time I was a salesman during the day. That was my day job.
Okay.
And I said, look, I'll make a deal with you. If you give me that certificate, I promise you'll go back to Mass on Sundays. I remember thinking to myself at the time, you idiot. You can't tell a priest that. You are really going to get struck by lightning. You can't, don't do it. And he looks me in the eye and he says, you serious? I'm like, yep. And he says, okay, here you go. And he gave me the certificate. And a week later, it's Sunday morning, and there was, had to be my guardian angel to this day, prodding me in the side. Hey, what are you doing laying on the couch doing your nails? It's time for you to go to Mass.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, I'm not going to Mass. No, I'm not going. Long story short, an hour later, I was sitting in the last pew at St. Catherine of Siena, and I have never missed Mass since.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. I was in there thinking to myself, because I was talking to this David's God, right? I was talking to this David's God. And I was saying to him, what do you want from me anyway? Why am I sitting in here? I like to write on Sunday mornings. I work all week. There's no time to write. What am I doing in here? And all of a sudden the choir sings, Hosea, long have I waited for your coming home to me and living deeply our new life.
Wow.
And I just got all choked up, and I thought to myself, that sounds like something David's God would say. What's he doing here? What's he doing in the Catholic Church? So that began my whole thing, was looking into the church. I read Mulieris Dignitatum. on the dignity and vocation of women. I was blown away by that document.
Wow.
I read Humane Vitae. I started cleaning my life up, and then I had this moment when I was in the study with that manuscript, and I shook my fist, are you for real? You're really. And that night, I opened up my Bible, which was I used to call it my telephone to God. I opened up my Bible up to Revelation, the chapter on Philadelphia, because I live in Philadelphia, and I said to myself, wow, what's Philadelphia doing in the Bible? That's weird. And I read it, and he says, that's the letter. He says, I know you. You're not strong, but at least you've never denied me, so I'm going to open a door for you. And what door I open, no man will close.
Wow.
And I had that shock go through me again. I thought, are you talking about like the door to Macmillan or Harper, Lord? Is that what you... And I went from being totally on the brink of suicide to filled with hope that I'm going to get a book published.
Wow.
This is God. He heard me. I mean, God's for real. I went to church. He was in the church. He's real. He's real. I remember going through this thinking, oh my God, he's real. My God, there's really a God. And he put it on my heart to rewrite a book I had written 10 years earlier. It was a novel. I was actually a fiction writer when I first started out. And I rewrote the book. And sure enough, within 6 months, my agent called to say, Harper just offered you a contract for your book. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It's God.
Wow.
God did this for me. This was my life's dream. He did it for me. And I remember going to my mother's after that day to tell her this. And I told her the whole story about how God had been coming into my life. She listened she's a real dainty, feminine woman. And she listened to the whole story, and she said to me, Susie, don't ever tell this to anybody else. I'm like, that bad, Mom? I ended up writing a book about it. But anyway, yeah, he led me through, he got me by the heart, Eric, is what he did. Got me by the heart. He got me away from the psychics. He got me away from the crystals, from the prosperity gospel. Started to show me, Susie, you don't need that. What you need is me. I'm the one with the power.
Wow.
I make this happen. And he literally remade my life. And he made it's a dream come true. My life became a dream come true when he came into my life. And I tell this to anybody who wants to hear it. And even if they don't want to hear it, I tell them, if you do not have God, you are only living half of your life. You are missing a whole other dimension of life if you do it. So I ended up, of course, I became a correspondent for the Catholic Standard and Times newspaper, which is the Archdiocesan newspaper of Philadelphia. And I started writing nonfiction, which I didn't like at first. And I kept thinking, what are you making me do that for? But I did it.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into the New Age. I was assigned the document, Jesus Christ, the bearer of the water of life. My editor said, Sue, I want you to report on that document. So I had to read it, and report on it. And I thought, what is all this stuff? And I had done a little investigative stuff while I was with that newspaper, especially in the abortion industry. And I started looking into it, like the Reiki.
Yeah.
And Reiki was like so big. Everybody was into this energy healing. I'm thinking, what is all this stuff? What is this chi that they're talking about? And this life force energy. And I started researching it. And I saw that science, there is no evidence that even exists. It's called putative energy. And they've been looking for something, and I'm talking physics is looking for it. And physics is probably one of the most advanced sciences we have. And they have there's just no sign that this even exists. Since Isaac Newton, they've been looking for this thing, and they can't find it. The other kind of energy, which we do have in our body, is veritable energy. And that's like monochromatic radiation and, the magnetism, that we have all that.
Yeah.
Sound waves and that. We can measure that. We know what that is. But what they're talking about doesn't exist. You can't measure it at all.
Yeah. So at this stage in your life, you were already back in the church.
I had finally come back.
You come back, and now you're kind of going back into your own past, I guess, when you see this New Age stuff and you're saying, wait, I experienced that, or like, that's what I was doing. And now I'm hearing the church's teaching really for the first time, like this distinctive, why it's so different. Yeah.
And I thought, whoa. And then I started reading the science behind it and that was even, whoa. And, we believe in faith and reason. in the Catholic Church. So you can never just discount the science behind it. And I thought, okay, well, wow, and look what they're doing out there with Reiki in particular. You have to go through different levels of attunement in order to become a master. And during these levels of attunement, you are assigned a spirit guide. And this spirit guide is just an unknown entity that helps you. You serve as its channel.
So did you become a Reiki master when you're...
No, I didn't.
Okay.
No,
But
no.
were you ever like experienced with Reiki before? Like when you were in your new age phase?
I knew about it, and I knew people were getting into all this energy healing and stuff, but
Gotcha.
I was more into the crystal end of things than I was into Reiki.
What is the crystal end of things? I'm not familiar with crystals and all
Crystals
that.
is that there's a belief that these stones, these certain crystals, and there's a wide variety of them, amethyst and jade and all these tiger's eye and all these different things, but that they, the energy of the universe is within, and all the energy of the earth is within the crystal. And you can unleash that energy and use it for healing. So they use it almost like a talisman or a good luck charm, these crystals are. And they claim that you can use it in healing. They lay them on different parts of the body, and then they do the energy work on top of the crystal. And they claim the crystal aims the energy into whatever needs to be healed. So crystals it's a very big thing. It's very big right now. I mean, during this coronavirus, they're saying, hey, you can use a crystal for every day of the week to help you get through the day. And I thought, okay, well, I guess here's a sapphire, here's an emerald, here's a, I don't think so. But yeah, that's a big thing, crystals.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so going back to your new age research now, you were discovering more and more about Reiki, and you're like, okay, this is a red flag. Yeah. Go into that a little bit more. Like what?
Yeah.
What's so bad about this having a spirit guide and like all these things? Like, is it really
guides? Spirit guides are demonic entities. There's no such thing as a spirit guide. We don't have really any record of that. These are things that are made up by the New Age, avatars, ascended masters. These are spirit guides. They often like to call them angels. They have their own idea of what an angel is. Angels in the New Age are beings that are at your beck and call. You ask your angel to do certain things for you, to reveal certain things to you, perhaps in your dreams or some other way. Whereas, of course, angels, as we know them, they were created solely to do the will of God. They are not at the beck and call of a human being. Their angels actually do some very outlandish things, magical things, and that sort of thing. That's their idea of an angel. And that's similar to what they're calling a spirit guide. And this is supposedly just somebody who guides them in the channeling of this energy that comes from the source. And in the Reiki material, that's just how they refer to it, as source with a capital S. So these are all demonic entities. And it's very, very scary because people have had to be delivered of Reiki, because during the attunement process, seals or symbols are put on certain parts of the body and names are given. And these are different names of spiritual entities that are given, and exorcists have revealed that those names are actually demonic names. And during the deliverance process, those were the names of the demons that they delivered that person from.
Wow.
So we have extensive evidence about that.
And is this even like if it's
dangerous?
Even if like you're at the entry level of Reiki, you're not like a master or anything, is there some sort of rite of initiation where, hey, that you need to be delivered even from that?
No. Once you get to that, once you get to the seals and the spirit guide, that's when you're starting to get yourself into trouble. And normally, people who are just in the initial stages of that are okay, but if you go any further into it, you're really stepping into stuff that you don't understand, and especially if you're just going by what the Reiki people tell you, because they have all kinds of happy fluff on their websites and all that kind of stuff to tell you you're going to help people. A lot of people who do this, Eric, they really do want to help people. They think they're helping people.
Yeah.
The ones who are involved in Reiki they're not evil people. They're just, trying to help, but they've gotten themselves now into the clutches of the evil one. People don't understand evil at all. And that's why they end up getting dragged into some of this stuff. And they don't see, they just don't understand how clever, how cunning, and how super powerful Satan is. He is way beyond what the average person understands. And it's not their fault because we're not taught.
And what do you think it is that attracts people to this Reiki or even broader into crystals or the New Age? Like what is it in people that is attracted by these things? I mean, and of course we know Satan does appear as an angel of light. Like, so it makes sense that, it would appear kind of nice. But what is it you think that attracted you? What is it that attracts other people to these sorts of things?
Well, I think we have a human instinct to want to know the future. We want security. And that is one thing. That is one temptation that Satan really, he does a good job with that. And he tempts you into all kinds of divination for people like me. I wanted to know what's going to happen to me.
So you went to psychics?
Oh, yeah, I went to psychics. And what is going to happen to me? And, what's my life going to be like? Am I ever going to meet anybody? What's going to happen? And I have a bunch of funny stories in my book about the people that she even tried to fix me up with her nephew. That was it was one of the dates from hell that I had. But anyway,
wow.
With psychics, I know, seriously, the Lord has a sense of humor with me. But anyway, psychics, the devil, he knows all this stuff about people. He can feed that psychic all kinds of information, not to freak you out, but he's listening to what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
He knows what we're doing. I mean, he knows what you did yesterday. He knows what you were reading. He knows all this stuff. I mean, we don't understand him and how he operates. And that's why it's so easy when you get tempted to divine the future that you're going to go and play with your runes, or you're going to go ahead and get involved with psychics like I did. Another big thing that's going on with psychics and channelers is this mediumship of contacting the dead. This is huge. It's huge right here in Philadelphia. I had a pastor a couple years ago actually contact me to say, Sue, I know it's short notice, but I'm having so much trouble with a medium around here who supposedly is linking people up with their dead relatives. I need you to get here and teach what this is all about and why this is so dangerous. And within 2 weeks, I had to put together a big presentation and come down and give it to his parish.
Wow.
And the hall was packed with people. It was packed with people. And there were actually mediums attending it there. They actually came to it. A couple of them walked out.
What did you say to this group?
I explained to them how the supernatural realm, what beings are in the supernatural realm, okay? You have preternatural beings, you have supernatural beings, and you have disembodied human souls. That's what we know is there. And we know this from Revelation, of course. We know this from history. What are
the definitions of the preternatural, supernatural?
Well, supernatural would be God.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. A preternatural being would be angels.
Okay.
So the supernatural and preternatural were not created to have bodies. They're spirits.
Mm-hmm.
So preternatural would be angels, and of course demons, because they're also angels. Or they have angelic, they have preternatural powers. They're just fallen angels. Mm-hmm. And then disembodied human souls are us after we leave our body and we die. Now, the disembodied human soul is not capable of communicating with the material world without their senses. So we don't have that capability. You can't just, they like to say, oh yeah, the mind, he did it through his mind or something. No, it doesn't work that way. He has no way to contact you. He needs to borrow a body, so to speak. This is how I explain it to people. He has to borrow a body and those faculties. So, okay, can he borrow it from God? So look in Scripture, Deuteronomy 18:10, where God says he calls mediums and people who contact the dead. What does he call them? He calls them an abomination.
Mm-hmm.
So he certainly isn't going to consort with a medium to let your Uncle Joe appear to you,
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to do that. And then, okay, well, maybe an angel, they have preternatural abilities. Can an angel do it? Give you the body? Well, yeah, it has the power to do that. Angelic beings do have that power. However, the good angels exist only to serve God and his will.
Mm-hmm.
So if God's not going to allow it and call it abomination, his angels aren't going to do it either. And if disembodied souls can't do it, who's left?
Just the demons.
The devils. So that's why the church teaches this, that these kind of things, including hauntings, I might say, these kind of things are more than likely demons.
And how would you distinguish that from like having visions of saints or the communion of saints and all of that?
Good question.
Yeah.
Good question. That's called invoking the dead. Okay. And that's okay. We can invoke the dead. We pray to our saints. God does allow people to appear. We know that. He allows Mary to appear. He himself, Jesus, appears. You have all kinds of saintly apparitions in that. He does allow that, and he does facilitate that, but it's always for a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to haunt your house and throw pots and pans around in the middle of the night to scare the bejeebers out of you. That's not, he doesn't do that.
Right.
He's, it's always for a serious reason. It's to ask for prayer. Now, evoking the dead is what a medium does. And when you evoke the dead, that's where you're asking them to appear and communicate with you. You're kind of commanding them to do that.
Okay. It's like a conjuring. It's really.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. What I get from the New Age movement, what I see at least, is just a spirit of manipulation, like a spirit of like wanting to be in control and and wanting to control sometimes other people. Definitely wanting to control what you perceive as God, like this force, this energy. And so it puts you in the place of like the master as opposed to the servant is how I kind of see it.
Control your destiny.
Right.
That's really what they want to do, is control your own
ultimately
destiny.
Comes from your own insecurity and a lack of trust in the Father, for the God the Father to provide, and
exactly
and all of that. So
exactly. So when I explained that at that talk that night, there were 4 mediums there. 2 of the 4 got up and left. And they were probably trying to put curses on me on the whole way out. But I'm sure they were. I mean, I've actually been at where a Reiki master, I've been at one presentation, it was up in Canada, where she actually stood in the back and was doing, little things like that, trying to put curses on me. The whole time I was talking, it was, okay. I mean, you don't have to worry about, curses are real. They do happen. Any exorcist will tell you that. That's one of the main reasons for possessions.
Mm-hmm.
And serious oppressions are curses. However, if you are in a state of grace, you have a close relationship with Jesus. Remember, the devils can't do anything that God doesn't allow them to do.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to allow that to happen to one of his own. So what you need to do always is stay in a state of grace. So as long as I was in a state of grace, it didn't bother. She could stand out there and make all the things.
Yeah.
And she was cursing all the bricks in the church and all that. They later saw her out front. I've got some real strange people come to my presentations. But anyway, the other 2 of those mediums actually came forward and asked to speak with a priest.
Wow.
So, yeah, they didn't know this. And this is where my heart goes so out to people, because I was there. And I don't consider myself to have been a bad person. I just was looking for answers. And I just felt like I just needed help. I was just looking in the wrong place for it. That's all. And they're trying to help people. They just don't know.
It's so interesting to me how it seems like our culture goes one of 2 ways. And it used to be hyper rational and just like very much this atheistic kind of ethos, I guess you could say. But then it's kind of morphed now into like, but that left a void. So now there's like this spiritual hunger that's rising, and people are but they don't know what to fill it with. So they're filling it with these other things, with Reiki, with yoga, with whatever, to kind of connect back to something transcendent, something that feels more meaningful. And it's just interesting because right now we're in this juxtaposition of like, we have both at the same time in America. We have the hyper atheist rationalist thing, and we have the hyper spiritual, but neither of which is like Christian, but both of them can have roots that point towards the fullness of the faith and drive towards that. But it's interesting, as you say too, like one time someone close to me said, "Eric, you have a demon on your shoulder." And I was like, dang, that's not good. So I went to 4 different priests, actually, like, hey, someone said this to me. I'm a little freaked out. And all 4 of them were just like, don't worry, like, you're fine. Like, and I went to confession, and outside confession, there was Eucharistic adoration, and the priest was like, listen, everything you need is in the Eucharist. Like, don't be afraid. Even if there is a demon on your shoulder, he can't get in you when you're abiding in him, when you're just, so it's just like so cool to hear that confidence of like, don't worry, don't be afraid. God is more powerful than all of it. Just remain.
Oh, he is. He is, and the exorcists know it. And I've had such a great privilege to be able to work with so many different exorcists. And I just remember one exorcist, he actually came to pick me up at the airport when I was coming in to do a presentation there, and he picked me up, and he spoke like Marlon Brando. That was how he talked. Yeah, like, I'm going to tell him that. He would tell me to do that. I'm going to tell him that. And that's how he would talk to the demons. And he would tell me all this stuff about the demons. And he said to me, and I never forgot this, he said, Sue, the one thing that this has taught me is just how powerful Jesus Christ really is.
Wow.
You don't realize it until you see the convergence of these two enormous powers, supernatural, coming up against the preternatural, and you see the enormous strength of Jesus Christ. It's just, they just tremble.
Right.
They want out. I mean, these movies, the way Hollywood just does such a distortion of the demonic. I mean, it's no wonder people fall into this stuff. They make it look so fluffy. The exorcists are not afraid of the demon. It's the other way around. The demon's doing everything in his power to get out from not having to do this exorcism. He doesn't want it. He's trying everything to get out of it. I mean, but look at the way it's presented it by Hollywood. Demons are friendly. I mean, there's this new Disney show on now for kids, and it's based on a teen girl whose aspiration in life is to become a witch.
Wow.
And she's paired up with an expert sorcerer who's going to teach her how to become a witch, and a friendly little demon named Pipsqueak or something like that. And I'm thinking, okay, you're teaching children this?
Wow.
You're teaching kids this, okay? I mean, I know adults who aren't aware of this information. Kids certainly don't know it.
Wow.
And then that book of children's book of demons that came out at Christmas time, that was all the sigils, the different symbols. Sigils are symbols of demons, and it's teaching the children how to summon the demons through those different sigils.
Now, were you going back to kind of so you basically were in kind of the New Age, steeped in it for about 10 to 15 years, is that right?
I was out of it. Yeah.
And at that point, obviously away from the church until that awesome conversion you had, and a reversion, I guess you could say. But
yeah, reversion.
But during that 10 to 15 year period of where you were kind of getting steeped into that, what were some of the first things? Obviously, you said that you were kind of hyper feminist, but what was the first do you remember the first time you consulted a psychic or viewed a crystal, or what were the things, and then what was kind of the pinnacle, where you say you'd this was the furthest I went and this was crazy? I'm just kind of curious about that kind of time frame in your life and what you learned from it subsequently.
The first time was psychic. That I did, and I paid money to see this psychic. And she told me everything that I wanted to hear. So I kept going back to her. And then she got into a point where she said, I'm also an astrologer, and I'm going to put together your natal chart for you. And I thought that was kind of getting a little weird.
Huh. I don't even know what that is. A natal chart.
That's the chart about everything the placement of all the planets that astrology recognizes. Astrology doesn't recognize all the planets. They only recognize some. But where they all were, and all the constellations, where they were at the exact moments you were born, and then they read into this all these different influences that these, stellar things had on my life and the creation of me of who I am. And I thought, I'm not sure I like this too much. I still believed in God, and that I was created by God. I still believed that.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of got into that territory a little too much, and I didn't like it.
Okay.
So that tells me that was my poor angel. It was working overtime at that time. Poor angel. I'm sure it was him saying, "Yeah, this is weird. Get out of it." And that's when I said to myself, "Okay, this is a little strange, and I don't think I'm going to go down that path." You charge me a lot of money for it too, but natal charts are a big thing. Astrology is a huge thing. astrology,
Wow.
even though it's nothing more. It's a Babylonian occult art. That's what it comes from. It has no, people think it's astronomy. They get it mixed up with astronomy, and they think that it's scientific. It's not scientific at all.
Yeah.
And not scientific, but Father Mitch Pacwa, he explains it in his book, Catholics in the New Age. They are so off in their scientific calculations of the planets, and they only recognize 5. The others are just sort of like wild cards. That whatever your sign is, back it up 1 month, because that's really where it is. In other words, everybody's signs are wrong, according to astrologers. If you had a sign, let's say I'm supposedly I'm a Leo, I should actually be the sign in front of me, which I think is a Cancer or something like that. Because astrologically, the way they figure out those constellations is scientifically invalid. Mm-hmm. And when you put valid science onto it, you find out that everybody's astrological sign is actually wrong.
So you had this kind of red flag right then, but obviously you didn't just get out and you kept going further. So what was kind of the next stage in that process of diving deeper into that way of thinking?
Well, I think that not long after that, I was really getting into that prosperity gospel too. And this is all got wrapped up into when I started reading the Psalms.
Okay.
And I started to, I think, look at faith in a whole different way. I had to rediscover my faith from my own. It couldn't be my parents' faith anymore, because I think that's what happens to us. We're raised on it and we just think, okay, that's mom and dad's faith. But what's mine? And then I started to look into my faith a little bit more. And I think when I read Mulieris Dignitatum, that was probably one of the biggest turning points for me in my whole spiritual life, was reading that document. I was blown away. I couldn't believe what I was reading, how much Jesus, how outside of the norm Jesus was in his day, the way he treated women.
Yeah.
All the way John Paul explains this is beautiful. His whole talk with the woman who was caught in adultery. Mm-hmm. It's so beautiful. Those of us women who are out here who were wounded in our relationships, and that he writes about that. He says, here was Jesus, and all those men were confronting this woman caught in adultery. He says, but where was the man? And isn't that the case even to this day? The woman takes the fall, but behind the sin very often lurks the man. And I remember reading that, and I just burst into tears.
Wow.
I just burst into tears. It was like, for the first time in my life, I felt like somebody understood the way it really works out there.
Wow.
Because that's the truth. Yeah. You're pressured into a lot of this stuff. It's not like you want to do it. You're pressured.
Yeah. And St. Louis de Montfort even points out that there was only one enmity that was willed by God at the beginning. That was between Satan and the woman.
Yes.
So it makes sense that women have been so oppressed and so attacked, and Satan wants them to dive into the New Age. He wants them to be, become psychics or mediums. He wants them to be ensnared in his traps so much, because women are so powerful, and he's afraid of what they could become if they followed the model of Mary. And
absolutely
done to me. And so he tempts them with this spirit of manipulation that's like, don't surrender to God's will. No, you're God. You do it. And so it makes sense that, like, how interesting that there is this epic battle between women and the woman and Satan. And I think that's very interesting that, obviously there's men that are diving into the New Age as well. There
are. But that one point that you made there about women, and I'll tell you where they're finding their empowerment today, and this is especially true in the millennial age group and also teenage girls, and that's witchcraft.
I was going to ask you about that. It's becoming big, huh?
Yeah, very, very big. There are millions of hashtags out there, Instagram, the Insta witches, millions of altars that the girls post on their Instagram pages and stuff. They're very into witchcraft. This is empowerment for them. This is their response to Me Too. This is how to get your power back. You're going to unleash this, and that's how these Instagram witches is what they call themselves, the Instagram witches. This is how they appeal to them. look at this, you can have all this power.
Wow.
You can work magic, you can do potions, and you can put curses on people that are doing this, and you can, curse the president and this is empowering to them.
Wow.
And they have a strong voice, and it's all out there on social media. They actually have now their own witchy fashions, their cosmetic line, jewelry. It's a huge cottage industry right now. There's the Jane Madison series for teenage girls. I think it's called the Teen and Win Witchcraft, or the different names of it. They are bestsellers.
Wow.
Among teenage girls. People don't realize how much they're getting into it. I've written a lot on that. I've given presentations on that witchcraft, how parents can spot whether or not a child is into witchcraft or not. A lot of times it's just by the clothes they're wearing.
Wow.
These witchy fashions that they like to wear, certain symbols, runes and stuff on their necklaces, and think they do sigils. They make their own sigils and they draw them on their hand, on their wrist, or on their palm.
Wow.
They have grimoires. They teach them how to do your own potions and spells.
So what would you say to, let's say, a teenager who's being attracted and kind of ensnared into this empowerment? What would you say? No, here's actually authentic femininity. Here's authentic feminine empowerment. What would you say?
Go to God. That's where all the power is, because God answers, because Satan answers to God.
Wow.
They don't get that part.
Yeah.
And I have said this already to Satanists, right to their face. I've said it. Remember, your master answers to mine.
Whoa. Yeah.
I probably got a big curse after that one, but yeah, it's true. And you just have to tell them this is where the power really is. And you might think that it's just this weird old-fashioned stuff that your parents cram down your throat. But let me tell you something. Go out there and discover it on your own. Yeah. Don't let me tell you. You go out and discover it on your own. Here, read this. And I start them out with a book called Interview with an Exorcist. And that's by Father Jose Portella, the Spanish exorcist. Very easy to read, Q&A. Teenagers can absolutely get that book, and they will, I'm telling you, think twice. He lays it right out. Boom, boom, boom. All the questions. How does this happen? How does he get in? What are the different ways he oppresses us? How do I know if I'm being oppressed? What is obsession? What are vexations? It gets into all this stuff of how Satan manifests himself. It's once you open their eyes to it and you get them out of the Hollywood idea of the occult and you educate them, our kids are smart. Mm-hmm. I think we sell them too short. Our teens are very smart people. They understand it. And when you show them that and you allow them their own space to read it on their own, they'll come around. They will come around.
And how does one, let's say if someone dabbled in this stuff and maybe went pretty far into witchcraft, and let's say they were already baptized beforehand, what are how do they get fully delivered from these curses that they've invoked, or these things? Like, how do they achieve some sort of freedom in all of this?
Thank you for that question, because that's a very good one, and people can be set free. Jesus forgives everything. Mm-hmm. There's nothing they've done that he will not forgive if they are truly repentant for it. What you need to do is you need to renounce, reject, and repent, the 3 R's. And you say a little prayer to Jesus, and I have led whole audiences through this prayer. That Jesus, I am sorry for having been involved in any occult practices. I renounce those practices, I reject them, and I repent of that sin. Please forgive me. Simple as that. The exorcists say that when you went to that psychic or channeler or got into witchcraft, you went there of your own free will. Now you have to shut the door with your own free will. Because every time you reach out to a power source that's not God, you open a door. And it gives him more access. It gives the devil more access. You must close the door. So you say that little prayer, and you go to confession, and you lock the door. A confession is as powerful, if not more powerful, than an exorcism. And any exorcist will tell you that. Wow. God is bringing the power of Jesus Christ right there. He's going to clean you up, and boom, you come out of there a new person and full of grace. God gives you the grace to be able to resist it. So you renounce, you repent, you reject. You just go to Jesus, make it up in your own words, right from your heart. and then go to confession. And even if you confess something and perhaps the priest doesn't understand some of these different things, says, oh, you were just fooling around, it wasn't that serious. I mean, even if he does, say to him, okay, Father, but I would feel better if I could just, ask for forgiveness for this. No priest is going to say no to you. Just say, please, I just want to be forgiven for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of them don't understand some of these things that are going on out there. They don't understand how big they are. Even the witchcraft, they'll say, well, you're just fooling around with your friends. You know what? Just insist. I would like to be forgiven from all occult activity. And that's it. You're cleaned up. And then you just stay away from it. You get everything out of your house that has anything to do with it. All your books, jewelry. Be careful with this jewelry. Anything that's got any kind of occult or astrological symbols on it. A lot of these jewelry manufacturers bless them before they sell them. You want to get rid of stuff like that. Get it out of your house. Throw it in the trash, burn it, whatever you want to do. Just get rid of it. And no talismans, no lucky charms. All that stuff has to go. And then that's how you start afresh.
Wow. So where do you see our world going these days as far as, the new age is called the new age because they believe that we are entering into a new age, right? It was the age of Pisces and now it's
right. And now it's the age of Aquarius. Again, they're basing everything on astrology.
Right.
It's like, okay, that's not necessarily a sure foundation to build anything on, but that's what they're doing.
But yeah, where do you see this going as far as like, okay, there's a resurgence of Satanism, of witchcraft. In fact, I live in Colorado now, but last year I was living in Houston, and the first ever public satanic black mass was held in Houston.
Okay.
Fall, and the Catholic Church, like, we had like adoration going at the same time. We had prayers and vigils and rosaries, and like we were fighting. But they did this awful black mass. And so, okay, so there's a resurgence of this, at least in America. What will end up happening to this country if like we continue down this path of opening ourselves up to these demonic spirits? And also, what are some things that you would maybe warn people? Hey, I know that looks innocent, but stay away. I know that looks okay, but trust me, that's a gateway into something further. About those things.
Yeah, I'm going to say probably astrology would be the one thing to say that can be a gateway, because you're beginning to now give into that temptation to know the future. Any kind of divination, and a lot of times it does look, really hokey. It's nothing much. I'm just tossing these runes, and I don't really believe it. I'm doing the tea leaves. I don't really believe that stuff. I mean, I'm just doing it for fun. Don't even do it for fun. That's what they say. Yeah. Don't do it for fun. In fact, John Paul II actually warned that in one of his audiences. Don't even do it for fun. Just stay away from it. Yeah. Stay away from all that stuff. What he's doing is that's a temptation from Satan. He's tempting you to want to know your future. Yeah. And the future really lies in God's hands. Where's the world going to be if we continue down this path? Well, it's going to continue to destroy itself is what's going to happen. There isn't going to be a world, because Satan's aim is always to destroy. What he does is he starts out making it look like he's your best friend. He's going to give you everything you want. You go ahead and make this pact with me. And I'm going to just make sure that you're rich and famous. But in the end, he always will destroy you. That's just his whole MO, his destruction. He wants to get at God. And the only way to get at God is by destroying us. That's how he does it. Wow. So we always have to remember that and keep that in mind. He is a destroyer. He is an assassin, or he's a very patient assassin. And he watches and waits, and he knows, as Paul VI said, he knows how to penetrate everybody's individual psyche. He knows exactly where your weak spot is. Don't ever let your guard down. You've got it. You need Jesus Christ. You stay very close to Mary. They can't stand Mary. They don't even like her name. Some of the stories from The Exorcist are like, wow. I mean, he just doesn't want anything to do with Mary. John Paul II's another one. St. John Paul II makes him irritable, is what I hear. John Paul II makes demons irritable. Wow. Yeah, they don't like him either. But Jesus Christ, of course, is the one that, they just tremble. They just tremble. Yeah. They don't want to be around him.
Yeah, it's kind of as we wrap up here, which, man, I could just talk to you forever. This is awesome. Uh, I'm just curious, like, what's one of the craziest things, like craziest exorcisms you've seen, like craziest deliverances? What's one of the most crazy, like, supernatural experiences where it just demonstrated the power of God so awesomely? I would just love to hear about that. And then any last bits of advice that you have for our audience.
I don't know that I've ever seen anything too outside the norm as far as somebody getting delivered. In most cases, there is some physical manifestation, coughing, choking, sometimes vomiting, some blaspheming in that, but nothing too out of the ordinary. But I've read about some very extraordinary things where demons were refusing to come out, refusing, and then finally, the priest would call upon Mary or something like that, and say, and all of a sudden, this demon who was saying, "You'll never get me out. This is he's mine. I'm not coming out," and all of a sudden, Jesus allows his mother to come. Jesus is orchestrating everything, of course, but he allows his mother to come in there, and they're like, "No, not her, madam, yes, madam, boom, he's gone."
Oh,
This demon who's just, and all of a sudden, "Madam, no, yes, madam," and finally left. I mean, yeah, you see things that just chill you to the bone. It is. My advice to people is to have nothing to do with the occult at all. Don't dabble in it, even in the most minor way, because of the treachery of Satan and how he is watching you at every moment, waiting for an opportunity to get in there and to turn you away from God. Stay very close to God. Always stay in a state of grace. This is not a game. This is real stuff here. This is a supernatural truth, and we need to learn to, I think, pay more attention to our supernatural life and to what's going on out there, and keep ourselves safe. Always stay in a state of grace. If you can consecrate yourself to Our Lady, do that. I recommend that for everybody that I ever come in contact with and do any kind of counseling or help with. Get yourself consecrated to Our Lady, because she offers protection against Satan, and in particular against delusion and deception from Satan. You might be deceived, but you won't be deceived for long. You've got to make sure, and don't rely on yourself. Always rely on God. If you rely on yourself, you're going to get duped, because he is superhuman intelligence. He can outsmart you at every turn.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's, you really have to, like I said, be very, I mean, I don't worry about it at all, really, because I just stay what I worry about is, where am I at on the path of union to God?
Right.
That's my main concern. I mean, right now with the virus, there's everybody talking about the end times, and we're going to have illumination of conscience and all that. I'm worried about the illumination I'm going to get on my deathbed when I stand before the Lord. Am I going to be ready for my bridegroom? That's really what I focus on day and night.
I think it was St. John Vianney who experienced a lot of spiritual warfare in his life, but he said, the one thing I'm afraid of is just committing mortal sin. Like, sinning is what I'm like, because that's what separates me from God. That's Satan's number one goal, is to get you to sin, because it disfigures and distorts that relationship. Obviously, God is gracious and wants to forgive, but to die in that state of unrepentant sin, that would be something worth being afraid of.
Oh, yeah.
Which you don't, obviously we're not called to be afraid of anything, but as long as you're faithful to God today, I mean, that's what he's asking of us, right? To just receive his love today, to abide in his love today. And he'll give us the perseverance and love to the end.
And stay with him. Just to stay with the Lord. Practice his presence every day. He's right here with us. He's right here with us all the time. And, how many times a day do we stop and say, "Hey, Lord, how you doing?" Check in with him. That's what I always tell people. Practice his presence. He's right here. Stay in the present moment.
Yeah.
You don't need mindfulness for that, this new popular stuff. We already have that. We've been doing that in the Catholic Church for hundreds of years. You stay in the present moment, because that's where God's will is for you. It's called the Sacrament of the Present Moment. That's Father J.P. de Caussade, I believe, teaches that, the Sacrament of the Present Moment. So every moment, God's revealing himself to you. And all his graces are in the present moment where he is. So if you're facing anything difficult in your life, make sure you get back into that present moment. Never mind worrying about the future. All the grace you need is right here in the present. And when you get to that point in the future, the grace will be there for you. So you don't have to worry. God really does take care of us. He's such a good God.
Yeah.
He's such a tender, loving God. And I think, who would not want him?
Yeah. Would you say, or what would you say is the biggest distinctive between New Age and Christianity as far as like our perception of God?
Well, they think he's an energy force. They don't think he's a person. They don't think he's a person at all, even though that's how he revealed himself to us. He says, I am who am. He didn't say, I am what is. He said, I am who am.
Wow.
He's a person. It's not like we're making this up, you know?
Right.
And that to me is the absolute worst, to think that my God is just an energy from, no, I want someone I can talk to.
Yes.
I need a God I can relate to. And that's what Christian prayer, of course, is. It's the dialogue with God, because he wants to talk with us.
Yes, yes.
He wants to be with us in our lives.
And therein lies the difference between mindfulness, which is just like blanking out or whatever, and Christian mindfulness, which is, no, I'm in God's presence and I'm having a relationship with God.
That's right. Exactly.
And that fulfills our hearts, because our hearts are made for him and made for love. And that's, it just fits like a hand in a glove, right?
It really does. It really does. And I know that just from my own whole life experience now with the Lord. And I can just say that, I wouldn't know how to be myself now without him. That's how close I am to him. Of course, he got me by the heart. He made my dreams come true, and he gave me the life that I never even dreamed I could have this life. I mean, it's not a life of money, but I'm doing what I love.
Yes.
Every day I get up and I do what I love. And I think I wouldn't trade that for all the money in the world. I mean, maybe half the money in the world, but not for all the money in the world. I just want to pay the bills. I'm happy with that. But, he made my life happen.
Right. Oh my goodness.
I'm not special. I'm not different. I see he will do this for everyone. Everybody who comes to him and says to him, you know what? I need you. Help me. Show me what to do. He's right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he will help you.
That's awesome. Well, Susan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And lastly, where can people find you, and what are maybe some of your book recommendations that you've written that you would recommend people who have heard this episode?
Okay. You can get my book, A Catholic Guide to Mindfulness. You can get that at going to catholiclifeinstitute.org.
Okay.
That's a little ministry that I have on the side. I do that. You can read my New Age blog at womenofgrace.com, and just scroll down to blogs and you'll be able to find it in there. And let's see, my conversion story is also it's called We Need to Talk. God Speaks to a Modern Girl. You can find that right on Amazon. All my books actually are out on Amazon. I am working on one right now called Fight Like a Catholic, and it's all about this Catholic spiritual warfare.
Wow.
So hopefully that's going to be out in September.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
Hi, everybody. This is Al Belowski, host of Catholic Mysticism and All Things Catholic. We have such a beautiful, vibrant faith, and I want to introduce you to it. And what we do on the show is we talk about the supernatural. We talk about a prayer life. We talk about the battle that's waged between good and evil. We talk about Satan, and we talk about God and the battle that they have begun for our souls. And we talk about our brothers and sisters, the saints. And we want to get you into this wonderful supernatural aspect of our faith, where we talk about miracles of the Eucharist, where we talk about Our Lady's apparitions at Fatima and Lourdes. And we can let our souls be nourished with this and continue to grow closer to our Lord in holiness. And by our brothers and sisters that have gone before us, the saints, that we tap into their lives and talk about them and the challenges that are so relevant today in our world as it was for them. And we use this to become closer and closer to our Lord, because we are spiritual beings, and He has given us this great gift of His church to nourish us with His sacraments, especially in the Eucharist, and confession and confirmation, and all the beautiful things of our faith that lead us closer and closer to Him. So I hope you'll tune in for Catholic Mysticism, where we will try, you and I, together, to grow closer through the Holy Spirit to our Lord Jesus Christ. God bless.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.